After 17 years of running my business, I've finally retired, and I thought I would feel light, free and excited and unstoppable. But 4 months in, it's left me asking a bunch of questions that I didn't anticipate that I would be asking myself. I split my time between Cape Town and the UK. I'm still working about an hour a day to earn some passive income that is enabling me not to draw on my pension yet, and yet retirement isn't quite what I thought it would be. So today's vlog is an honest story of what happens when you quit your 9 to 5, the good, the bad, and to be quite honest, the really surprising things that I couldn't anticipate. I thought I was ready to retire. I had a plan, my calendar's full of trips, I had enough money, but to be quite honest, 4 months in, I'm not quite where I thought I would be. So in today's vlog, I want to share with you what I feel like no one tells you in those early days of retirement and why I'm rethinking the plans. So let's jump in. Now, retirement definitely didn't happen overnight to me. I spent 18 years building my coaching business, helping others find purpose and clarity. But as I approached 60, I realized that actually, Rob, I need to take my own medicine and do the things that I was always telling my clients to do. Now, in the latter years of being a coach, I had built up an online coaching business. And so part of my retirement plan was to stop doing all the one-to-one client work, but keep my online program going and earn enough passive income so that I could only work an hour a day, but still earn about £2,500 a month, which is what I calculated that I needed to live a comfortable life on. However, what I didn't expect was how emotional this transition was going to be. Saying goodbye to something that I'd spent 20 years building was much tougher than I thought, even though, to be quite honest, I'd started to fall out of love with it. And it forced me to confront the much deeper question, which I'm sure a lot of you go through as well, which is, without work, who am I? So retirement stripped me of this label of business owner, entrepreneur, and employer. And suddenly I was just me, and that was much harder than I thought. You know, when you go to a party and someone walks up to you and they say, "Hey, what do you do?" Well, most of us respond by saying, "Oh, I'm a business coach, I'm an accountant," or whatever. So when you take that away, it's much harder to answer that question. What do you say? To be quite honest, the temptation to keep working is really strong. After all, I'd spent 40 years working, having that structure every single day, and suddenly it's just not there anymore. And then to compound all of this, the delightful Trump crash happened, and suddenly my pension lost the equivalent of 2 years worth of working. And like a lot of people, I was thinking, oh my goodness, does that mean I need to actually work for 2 more years because the sums no longer add up? And of course, with pensions that are invested in stocks and shares, they can go up as well as down. It has been proven over the last few months. And one thing I've learned is that you need to give yourself a bit of grace here. The term retirement depression is real, and I can completely understand why people go through this. And I'm sort of lucky that I think I'm doing retirement the right way by easing my way into it, cutting down, first of all, from 5 days to 4, then 4 days to 3, and then in the last 4 months, just basically 1 day or an hour a day's work. And I think that makes easing into retirement an awful lot easier. And as I said, I've got a strategy to continue earning money for the next 18 months before touching any savings or drawing on my pension. So what does a typical day in my life look like now? First of all, I get up at 7, I make myself a coffee, I go back to bed, and I read the news and catch up on emails and social media and so on. I go to the gym every day now. I'm trying to protect my health as much as I possibly can. And I think going to the gym is good for my physical health as well as my mental health. And it gives me a little bit of me time and also some structure in the day. Then I get back and I do some work, either an hour's work, or I work on this YouTube channel, which is taking up an awful lot of my time. The vacuum created by my work seems to be filled by this YouTube channel, which I still enjoy doing, and I'm fortunate enough now to have the time to do that. Then I make sure I spend some time reading and chilling out. I've got a few rules for myself. I'm not a great TV watcher, so I certainly wouldn't ever turn the TV on until the evening. And obviously I need to be respectful of the fact that James is still working and we're both working from home. But I like having lots of projects, and one of the projects that are going on at the moment is we are moving house, and we'll tell you more about why and where we're going in a future video. And to be quite honest, days where I don't have some structure, self-imposed structure now, I feel a little bit lost and I feel this sense of wasting time. And I think that this is a transition that I need to go through. Again, I think a lot of you, if you're retired, will kind of empathize with that fact, that this sense of wasting time, whereas I was doing things in the past. And I know this is completely just a story that I'm telling myself, and I need to transition away from that mindset, because sometimes it's good to just sit and do nothing. And to be honest, while I was in Cape Town from January to March, I found it much easier to fill my time seeing friends, going out, for several reasons. One, because all of my friends are local. Two, because they're all retired. And three, because there's so much to do in sunnier weather, and our place in Cape Town is less than 5-minute walk to the beach and to the shop, so I can walk places. And of course, as you'll have seen if you watch the series on day trips from Cape Town, there is so much to do away from there. Whereas coming back to the UK, that isn't quite true. So first of all, the weather isn't great yet until we hit the summer. Second of all our friends are not local, so that planning is much more important. It's much harder to be spontaneous. And thirdly, we can't walk to lots of things. So I was much more concerned about my retirement here in the UK than I was in South Africa. And I think that's turned out to be the case, that it was very easy to fill my time, but here it's a bit harder. And it's sort of amplified by the fact that James works from home. So he's working sort of 8 till 4 every day. And I am not always doing that. So there is a temptation to just sit and do some work to fill that space, that vacuum that retirement has created. But I'm really being mindful of not doing that. Otherwise I just sink my way back into working again, which is certainly not the intention. So as I hinted to earlier, one of the things that I decided I wanted to do in my first year of retirement is travel a lot. So my calendar is absolutely packed in terms of travel. So this weekend I'm heading up north to Yorkshire to see friends, heading on to Scotland to see friends, then to the northern part of Scotland to see one of my Cape Town friends, then coming back via York to meet some more friends before driving back here. And interestingly enough, I did my research into this. Obviously I'm going to take you on this trip with me, but it turned out to be the best way of getting there turned out to be driving, because the train is so expensive and flying meant that I'd still have to hire a car to get to the places I want to go when I'm there. So that's that trip. Then when I get back, James and I are going island hopping in Greece, and of course again we'll take you with us. Then I am heading to Mallorca to see another one of my South African friends who spends his summer, Northern Hemisphere summer, in Mallorca. And then him and his partner are coming to see us in July, and we are heading to Rye for a few days, Brighton, and then here. And then finally in September, James and I are heading to Italy, and then in November I head back out to Cape Town for November, December, come back here, and then James and I both head out to Cape Town in January. So that sounds like a lot. I'm exhausted just telling you that. So I'm excited that is obviously forcing me to retire and keeping me busy doing things that are really, really good for my mental health, and hopefully will stave off any kind of sense of retirement depression. If it's not obvious to you guys that what's important to James and I are experiences over material things. In fact, when we move, we're downsizing. So we've gone through a whole kind of Swedish death cleaning process of decluttering our house and getting rid of lots of stuff, because we're moving from a big house to a much smaller place. So that's interesting. And again, I'll tell you more about that in a future video. So for now, my goal for 2025 is to travel more, is to earn enough passive income to delay drawing on my pension. And I'm trying to shed this mindset of travel that, you know, you've got 2 weeks at the very most because that's what your vacation time from work is. Of course, that isn't the case. And I'm always surprised at why so many retired people still think that way, especially since often traveling can be cheaper than staying in your own location once you get to that location. So it makes sense to stay there longer, because obviously the airfare is the same whether you stay there for a few days or even a few months. So we are definitely trying to adapt away from that mindset, and obviously that's the case when I'm in South Africa, and it's definitely cheaper for me to live in South Africa for the winter than it would be to stay in the UK and have all those associated heating costs as well. So I feel like I'm sort of fighting against this this need to keep working to earn enough money and moving away from that mindset to redefine myself as who I am now, so that I can enjoy my go years, as they call it, that period of time between say 60 and 75, where you're fit and healthy, that you want to keep exploring the world and keep doing things, before I slow down into those slow years where I perhaps travel a little bit, but it's a little less adventurous than it will be now, and then finally hit those no-go years where I'm too old to travel. And they say that youth is wasted on the young, and it's so true, but if I was giving some advice to my younger self, I would say, Rob, save as much money as you possibly can. You'll thank me later. Now, I did start my pension when I was young, but I wasn't paying an awful lot of money into it, so I wish I'd started that more then. But of course, when you're young, how on earth can you think about that 60-year-old version of you when you're in your 20s and you want to go out and have fun, and maybe you're saving for your first house? But I would also say to my younger self, look, don't wait. You don't know how long you've got, so make sure you're having those adventures now. I think I spent a lot of time building up my business and really focusing on that, and perhaps not enough time going on adventures. And James and I, neither of us took a gap year, and that's something that we want to do in the future. Just flipping that around a bit, one question that is really worth asking yourself is, how much is enough? We have this ever-ending piece of string where we think, oh, I haven't got quite enough yet, but how much is enough? So definitely do your calculations to work out how much you need to live on, because for most people it's less than they think. I used to think I needed to live on 5 or 10 grand a month. Now I'm living on 2,500 a month, and I'm living really comfortably with that. So make sure you start thinking about how much is enough, because if it's this ever-ending piece of string, then it will never be enough, and that will lead you to carry on working, and that isn't always the best way of leading your life. So if you are nearing retirement, or you've already retired, I'd love to know what surprised you the most once you went into retirement. Do leave me a comment and let us know. We love hearing from you guys, and I'd love to hear about your experiences as well. But I hope you found this kind of very honest video from me today useful, insightful, even if you can just say, yep, I completely relate to what you've got to say, Rob, or maybe you've got a different experience. But anyway, I hope you found this useful, and this is James and Rob signing off for now, and we will see you next time.